Hello and welcome back to the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. This is Penny Sansaberry and Amy Cornell. Amy, this actually, the origin story of this particular show is Amy's idea. So thank you so much, Amy, for coming up with this and for outlining it. We do actually, even though we sound sometimes like hacks, we do actually outline all the episodes. I know sometimes we ramble, we go off like different areas, but that's just who we are. Yep. And Amy, I was going to say we really designed this episode, but Amy really designed this episode. Again, she has strong opinions about stuff. We both do, but specifically about the aspects of publishing and book marketing that we really see authors stressing about almost unnecessarily, or because I think there's a lack of understanding about how all of this works, and maybe some information out there that maybe is a little bit outdated in some aspects, and we'll cover that in a minute. So we're going to cover some myths that will hopefully give you some important insight and also a little relief going forward. So Amy, do you want to start first? Do you want to take the first one?
Yeah, I love this reference, but it makes sense. First myth is, if I build it, they will come.
Right.
And again, as Penny said, this was really designed because these are truly things that issues, stressors that a lot of authors have over and over again that reach out to us. So these really are cemented in reality, believe it or not. So we do hear this a lot, but we do get authors that say, well, I've got a great social media following, or, they've like, oh, I've got these great professional connections. I'm on these 3 boards, or even friends in high places. We have authors that come to us like, oh, my friend was on this TV show and they're so excited to get my book. But the reality is none of those things, none of those connections are a replacement for thoughtful and strategic marketing and promotion, because books are very personal. Reading, honestly, is a luxury for many of us nowadays in regards to setting aside the time. So at the end of the day, people will buy it if they feel a personal connection to your work or what you're offering them. And that just doesn't happen casually. So social media followings, professional connections, friends in high places, those do not replace having to do actual marketing and outreach to the people that are really needing to be connecting with and buying your book.
That is absolutely true. And I just want to mention that we, for a long time, I would get, when Oprah had a show, I would get people who knew her dry cleaner, or, a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. Like it just like, well, my hairdresser knows the dry cleaner and the dog washer of the guy who fixed her sprinklers 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna get on the show. That rarely happens. But
never. I mean, is that fair? Okay. Somebody, please email me, prove me wrong.
Right. Prove me wrong.
If that plan worked for you, I want you to email me and we will do a retraction on the next episode.
Right. Exactly. Oh my gosh. That's another thing that's going to go on a t-shirt, is prove me wrong. So the next one is that there's an exact right release day, meaning an exact right day of the week. It's easy to stress about messing something up. That's very human, but the day of the week your book comes out isn't going to derail all the other things that you do right. So focus more on the general timing, your availability to do some self-promotion, the availability and timeline of the marketing company that you'd like to work with. Having a support network for your book is more important than the exact day. And I want to add to this, Amy, because there's a lot of conversation out there about you have to release on a Tuesday to hit a bestseller list. Maybe yes, maybe no. Right. But that's another one of those pieces of information that's a little bit, yes, a lot of publishers release on a Tuesday. Okay. But if you don't release on a Tuesday, is your book going to be a failure? Probably not. Right. So just keep in mind that whatever works best for your schedule, and don't stress about the rest.
Absolutely. And again, these are just things that we see authors getting, like Penny said, really stressed about. And then they lose sight of all the other things that they should be focused on that really do affect the bottom line and the success of their book. So, for what it's worth, focus on the right things. We can't control everything. And with that, the third one, publishing delays are unusual. That is a myth.
Right.
This goes along with the above point, but kind of deserved its own mention because we've seen this really throw authors for a loop in very unproductive ways. So we can tell you right now, publishing delays are normal, very normal, whether it's the editing taking longer or needing another pass, printing delays, especially nowadays with supply chain issues. Even the completion of your website that you thought was going to be done well in advance of your release, things happen, and freaking out or thinking that you need to stop everything. And we hear this a lot, even where authors go, well, maybe I should just release next year instead, because apparently next year will be perfect. I don't know where this rumor started.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's just wildly destructive to assume that everything is falling apart. So instead, just be prepared to be flexible, honestly. And again, just like Penny said in the last point, the more you focus on how you'll support your book, the easier it will be to accommodate delays. So if you've got everything in line, or you've at least hit a lot of the key points in regards to promotion and what you're going to do once your book is out there, then you're going to be in a good spot.
Right, exactly. And I want to just say that we actually had this come up this week. We have an author who is unable to get their shipment of books from China, I think it was, or something. And we offered him up and said, try, print on demand as an option. It's not ideal if you already have books that that are supposed to be coming out of China, but you can keep the train moving as it were. So it happens, but figuring out ways to roll with it will really help you, because this could have derailed this entire project. And you spent all this time creating this book and this cover, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, I'm just done. That just seems very unacceptable to me. Number 4, making the most of my, apparently I can't talk today. Most of my marketing, I love this one, needs to happen in the first couple of weeks of when my book is out. I talked to an author yesterday who thought that their book had to be like the first 7 days were crucial to the life of the book. And there's not, that is not to say that you need to ignore your book, but a lot of authors, the reason this bears mentioning is that a lot of marketing companies out there try to sell authors on massive marketing campaigns that really only have any actual promotion happening for a couple of weeks. So the timeline includes lots of calls to make you feel important, or lots of special reports and emails, but those efforts aren't really getting your book in front of readers, right? And longer isn't always better either. So we encourage you to focus on how much actual marketing is happening for your book, and how much of that marketing is focused on introducing your book directly to real readers, meaning that you don't necessarily want to buy into something that just feels like it's a lot of fluff and a lot of phone time and a lot of weird things that aren't necessarily going to move the needle, right? The other part of that is how much of that marketing will actually serve you once it's over. Media pitching is a really great example of that. The pitching is great, but once it's done, the marketing is over. Yes, hopefully you can get coverage from it, but again, feature articles age and disappear as well. So we're big fans of balancing time-sensitive marketing like media pitching with other elements that will serve your book and brand longer term, like doing Goodreads campaigns, setting up great Amazon ads, doing Amazon optimization, having a great Amazon book page, those types of things that don't necessarily disappear once they're over.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because we do see that a lot where authors come to us and they've been pitched a really big campaign that makes them get really excited and feel really important about their book release. And book releases are very exciting, but the reality is that release window is still, if you're lucky, such a small portion of the entire life and potential success of your book, right, Penny?
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
you got to keep that perspective in mind that, it's not just about, it can't just be all in the release. And then after that short window's over, you're sitting there going, what do I do now? So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
make sure that
absolutely.
you have the big picture in mind too. The next one, a marketing company can fix everything. I wish I could.
Oh, yeah.
True. And I'm sure most of you have heard the expression like putting lipstick on a pig. Well, that's kind of what marketing is if you haven't done the necessary work to create an excellent product. Or if you refuse to make smart updates or changes to things like a book cover that missed the mark, or a book description that wasn't written with the proper buyer psychology or your genre in mind. There are always typically things that you might be able to do better. So marketing, everybody needs to remember, marketing is just awareness. It's an investment to get your book in front of the right people. But at the end of the day, marketing is just going to make people, if it's just going to make people aware of a subpar product or a book that missed the mark on its cover or a book that doesn't have the description fully fleshed out yet, it's not going to do anything to help you actually sell more. So really, a marketing company can help absolutely get you in front of people that you couldn't normally reach on your own. That is 100% our goal. But we can't fix something that happened before we were brought into the game. So a lot of these elements, when it comes to your book, your platform, things like that your marketing company was not directly involved in, I guess what I'm saying is be open to taking some criticisms, some constructive criticism on things you can do better, because a good marketing company will absolutely do that for you. If they're sending people to your book page and there's something that you could be doing better, a good marketing company will tell you that. And we're very honest with our clients when there's things that we know that are easy fixes that can help them, make more of their investment, make more, do better with potential conversions once people land on their page. So don't think hiring a marketing company is just going to fix everything that maybe didn't go right before you showed up at their door.
That's a very good point. I just want to point out that the lipstick on a pig comment is going to come back and haunt you at some point. Amy thinks my book is a pig. My book is swine.
I know there's a theme now. I actually love pigs. I think it's really cute because if you Google that, the pigs with lipstick on them are adorable.
I know it. I know it.
But it truly is. Like that happens sometimes when people go, in another good example, sorry, now I'm stuck on this. And we see it a lot, Penny, where people release their book and then didn't do anything with it. Life got in the way.
Yes.
They forgot, they didn't get around to marketing, and they show up at our virtual doorstep a year later and go and think that we can fix the fact that they didn't market their book for a year.
Right.
And honestly, the reality is we could say, well, no, but we can help you now. And I will oftentimes tell people, if I think it's worth it, that doing a re-release or something like that is actually in their best interest if they really want to give their book a shot. So anyway, back to just be open. Marketing can't fix everything, but hiring a marketing company, if you're open to constructive criticism or open to constructive recommendations, really can help you make up, some time and make some big, improvements.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the next one, which thank you for giving this one to me, because I have thoughts on this. I have strong feelings about this. I need just one big media opportunity to skyrocket my book. That's a very big fallacy. And it's actually it's not just something that we came up with for the purposes of this podcast. It's actually based in reality, right? So we've had, in the 21 years that I've been in business, and the almost 11 years or coming on 11 years that Amy has worked with me, we've seen this happen where authors have had actually a big media opportunity that hasn't generated book sales the way that he expected. I met an author one time at a writer's conference who was on Oprah, again, when Oprah had a show, and sold 500 books, right? So you would think going on Oprah, I'm going to put a down payment on my villa in the south of France. Not so much, don't call that realtor just yet. So I think it's worth, and I know we must sound like such buzzkill on this podcast, but I think it's really worth I think it's worth mentioning that one great feature is great, right? But sometimes, surprisingly, and it doesn't really move the needle. So not to discourage you from not going after content for, this kind of placement and things like that. But media coverage really builds on each other. So, you could sell, and I actually had some agents tell me that they've had some authors on major morning shows and sold, literally have been on BookScan to see how many books that they sold during and just post interview. And it was 76, right? So keep in mind that sometimes big media can really surprise you. So, make sure that you're balancing out your goals of, I really want to go after big media, with other things that can support that, right? I love going after big media, but if I have an author who says I want big media, I am more often than not going to also say, let's go after bloggers. Let's go after other influencers. Let's take a look at going after bookstagrammers, because one thing builds on another. And you find that the needle does start to move on the book when you're not just focused on, I want to get on the cover of whatever magazine, I want to be in Fortune, or I want to be on a morning show. Media is a piece of the pie, but it doesn't necessarily trump all of the other pieces that have to come together to really move the needle.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's such an important one, because we do see that a lot, because it is exciting to have, one of those bucket list, media outlets or individuals show an interest in your book. And it's awesome. It's very cool. And you can do so much with that for your brand overall, and shout it from the rooftops on different elements of your platform. But like Penny said, don't call the realtor yet.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
The next one, sales and reviews are linked. So wouldn't that be amazing?
Right. I know it.
But I think most of us can say we own a book or two that we were really excited about, but we just haven't gotten around to reading yet. And I'm raising my hand here. I'm sure some of us have a few ebooks that we've downloaded that we haven't started yet, either because it was a flash deal or a friend recommended it or something like that. And you're like, I'm going to grab this right now because I don't want to forget. But it doesn't mean you've started it yet. So now that we're all in the same boat here, sales and reviews are obviously, they're not directly linked. So your efforts to obtain reviews still need to be ongoing, and they need to be consistent. People are typically well-intentioned, but life gets in the way. We all get busy. So regular reminders are really helpful and should be a part of your ongoing marketing and outreach. And there's lots of creative ways for authors to work in review reminders as well. Special promos, social media, your newsletter, things like that. I am officially signing off on giving you permission to bug people about it, because really you feel like you're bugging people, but 9 people out of 10 are going to be appreciative of the reminder, because again, they mean well, and those reminders are helpful. Okay. We all get busy. So let go of that whole, like, oh, I feel like I just asked everybody for reviews on my Facebook last week. It's like, who cares? If everybody reviewed, you'd stop asking, right? So, right. So until your sales numbers and review numbers match, keep at it. Okay.
I love that. Then that's a great point. This is, again, I love, Amy, how you divided up these 10 things and you gave me my personal favorites. I will be the exception to the rule, right? If someone in publishing is being honest enough to tell you something that doesn't paint a perfect picture of success, pay attention, right? So our regular listeners know we're always very honest about what success is and what it isn't, and the common roadblocks. So if someone is trying to work with someone, if someone trying to work with you gives you advice on sales expectations, assume it's because it's a real thing. If someone is telling you the Today Show only feature 3 authors a year, think about that, what that should mean for your future goals, right? Confidence is excellent. And this is not meant to buzzkill you, but realistic expectations unrealistic expectations rather, excuse me, creates a lot of disappointment, and often I think misguided investments. So I think that authors very often surprise us, right? And books surprise us, but going into this thinking that you're going to be the exception. And again, I know we sound very sort of like, well, this is a sad podcast. I'm sorry I started listening to this, but it's really very true, right? And we do this a lot when authors come to us and say, because our goal is always to help you be as successful as you can be and to give you the right guidance in order to attain that success. And I know for a fact, Amy doesn't sugarcoat that. And the reason I mention this, because if you ever come to us for advice or book marketing or whatever, Amy is the first person that you'll talk to. So she doesn't sugarcoat anything. And that's what we love about her.
I need like 3 t-shirts to wear, maybe a hat, a bracelet.
I know. Amy doesn't sugarcoat. We need that on a coffee cup.
But truly, it's a really, it is worth noting. And like you said, Penny, we don't mean to be buzzkill. We really are trying to help you stay focused on the right things, if that makes sense. So it's awesome to have goals and dreams, and confidence is amazing. There's nothing wrong with that. But we have no skin in the game if you fail. You know what I mean? Like, we have no reason to want to see you fail. So if we are giving you advice, or some other, if somebody else that you're working with that you trust is trying to give you advice, and maybe it conflicts a little bit with your goals or what you're trying to do, or some of your expectations you have for your book, just try to keep an open mind, that they really do have your best interest in mind, and they really are trying to help keep you on the path to what you're looking to achieve. But, if they've been doing this a while, if they have the experience, it's worth listening to what they have to say. And maybe it just means that you've got a few more stops on the way to that big goal that they're trying to kind of talk you off the ledge from.
Right. Exactly.
The next one, myth: bad reviews will ruin me. Okay, this is a big one. Negative reviews are part of this game. So sadly, you have to get used to it. I mean, even if you write an excellent book, there is always going to be a chance that someone will get a hold of it that's not your target reader. Yeah. And predictably, they're probably going to be disappointed. And you can't help that. But so instead of wallowing in your grief or getting irrationally upset, try to learn what you can from the review, if they've included any insightful details or if they were constructive. Because really the only time you need to be concerned is when readers leave reviews that refer to actual issues with the book itself. So if you are getting multiple negative reviews about editing issues, or if multiple people are saying they were kind of confused with the story arc a little bit, or they couldn't quite keep everything together, and this happens sometimes, where you're going to get feedback on maybe your main character was not as likable as you thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
And this happens, but and these are all things you can either get fixed. So getting another editing pass in that case, and getting the book updated, or that you can consider for future releases. So if it is something about a character, about something confusing in the plot, that's something that you can potentially use going forward, especially if it's a series or something like that, or just in general for how you approach, structuring your books. But, bad reviews as a general rule are not going to ruin your life as much as it feels like it in the moment. So as much as you can be, try to look at it productively.
And as an author, I would just like to say that it absolutely does feel like that in the moment. So thank you for reminding me. I appreciate that so much. Because sometimes it just feels like, and sometimes you'll get bad, and we talked about reviews. We've talked about reviews a lot, actually, on the show in particular. But sometimes you get people who bought your book and mistakenly thought it was something else, and then leave a review, punctuating their stupidity, I guess, for lack of a better term, right? Well, I thought this book was about cooking, but it's a book on publishing. Why would I want, and that's an exaggerated example, but you get the general idea. So sometimes you get bad reviews that are really, you want to something or someone potentially, but they won't necessarily kill you. They do hurt. I am fully on board with that.
Well, and I think, Penny, to your point, I do like your slightly exaggerated example though, because I think people that are really potentially going to be real buyers of your book are not going to zero in on that one review the way you did and go, oh, there's no way I could read this. So also put yourself in their shoes. Like I see this a lot with other products, not with books, where people will give the product 1 star because it arrived broken. It's like, well, I'm pretty sure they didn't make it in the factory that way. So I don't think it's actually, it's fair to give the product 1 star because it arrived broken, but things like that happen a lot. And I pay attention. I'm sure other people do too. You read through the negative reviews to see what actually makes sense. And so keep that in mind too, that while it's easy to hyper focus on the negative review as the author, anybody that's really potentially your people that will end up being a reader of yours is going to look at the bigger picture when in regards to your reviews. So keep that in mind too.
Yeah, absolutely. And number 10, so our final myth is I can hold off on getting a website or social media. Oh, I love this one. We did a mini-sode on Good Enough. And we also did one on Everyone Loves Me recently. And I think it's definitely worth a listen if you haven't caught it yet. Because this is kind of basically the same realm. I mean, a basic, easy to navigate website, even if it's just a single page setup, is really a basic requirement at this point in the publishing game. I mean, it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it needs to represent your brand. It needs to look professional. The same goes for social media. And you don't necessarily have to love social media. I don't know anybody that loves social media, right? And you don't have to be on every platform. And I talk about this a lot, right? Don't be everywhere that matters. But really being on a single platform that makes sense for your market. Maybe it's Instagram, maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's Twitter, and using that to the extent that it supports your brand in a positive way, shows readers and potential buyers not only that you take them seriously, but that you're showing up to your own party, right? So it's kind of like, like you invite a bunch of people over to your house for a party, okay? And you forget to put out the food or something, right? You're like, well, oh, you didn't bring your own? We didn't tell you?
Do I have to do everything? Yes, you do.
Do I have to do everything? Not having a website, even just a basic one, is absolutely not showing up for your own party. So, and the same thing is true, by the way, if you have a lot of social media sites that you haven't updated or don't update, and because you hate social media, that's another thing where you've opened the door and you've let people in and you're not feeding them. And just there goes your party.
But truly, I think that's a really good point, Penny, because, it's easy to forget because yes, everything you're doing, and absolutely Penny knows she's an author, everything you've done to put that book out there, to write the next one, all of the things is hard and it takes a lot of work, but I don't think anybody promised you that this would be easy necessarily. So just remember that the effort that you put out there, readers and potential buyers are absolutely paying attention to that.
Yeah.
So not even having a basic website, not having in this day and age, at least one social platform that makes sense, that gives people access to you in kind of a next level way so they can feel more connected to who you are and to your brand. It shows that you've kind of cut off on how much you're willing to try, to connect with them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really what it's more about. Like, you can hate social media up and down all day long, but the reality is a lot of people use it, and they use it to stay connected with, topics and brands and all these things that mean a lot to them. And you want to take advantage of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I completely agree with that. And I want to thank you again, Amy, for putting together this great show. This was really fun. I hope it was helpful. I hope we weren't all just, being super buzzkill. But I want to thank you again for listening. We love reviews wherever you listen to podcasts. We also love show ideas. We got a great show idea this week about pitching to libraries, and we're going to definitely talk about that. We'll probably combine that with bookstore, doing events in bookstores too, but we're definitely going to come up with a show on that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening, for writing us, for leaving a review, and most of all, for being part of our podcast team. We love doing this podcast. We've been doing it 2 years. So we're excited that you are listening and reviewing. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.